Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Imperial Diecast. Today I thought I'd be doing something different than reviewing a model car. In this video I'm going to be doing a comparison between two 1/24 scale cars, both of them being Ferrari 458 Italias made by Bburago. So you might be thinking now, what, isn't that the same car? But in reality, it isn't. And this is where we need to talk a little bit about Bburago. Now, when it comes to Bburago Scale 1/24, it is my opinion that their Ferrari line is also their most detailed line in this scale. Bburago have been making Ferraris for a lot of years, but in the past couple of years, what they've actually done is they have re-released some of their Ferraris without even so much as branding it differently or making the public aware that this is an improved version of the original Ferrari. This improvement is something that has affected their Ferrari F12 Berlinetta, their Ferrari F430, and their Ferrari 458 Italia, which I'll be talking about in this video. Both of them are sold in the same box as the same brand, name, everything. This makes it particularly difficult to buy the new version on the internet compared to the old version because a lot of sellers just advertise them both under the same name. So the model car on the left is the old Ferrari 458 Italia, which belongs to my friend who was kind enough to lend it to me for this video. The right one is one that I purchased a couple of months ago, so without further ado, let's start with the comparison. So as mentioned earlier, the old one is the car on the left and the new one is the car on the right. The biggest difference that you'll be able to notice between these two cars is that the old Ferrari 458 Italia did not have brake discs or brake calipers. As you can see right here, there is absolutely nothing behind the rims. Meanwhile, the new Ferrari 458 Italia has brake discs and brake calipers, and the brake discs move through the calipers, which remain stationary. So Bburago has really improved on the Ferrari 458 Italia's new version, and this is, as I said, the biggest difference between the two, and one that you'll immediately be able to tell. That's how I was even able to find out that this is a new model sold as the old one. Another difference between the old and the new is that the Ferrari logo on the center of the rims does not have a black circumference, while on the new one, you can see that there is a black circumference. So that's also pretty interesting. We'll notice the second difference when we look at the headlights. This is the old one, to the left, as I said, and you can see that the headlights have details, but most of that is obscured by the fact that the headlight glass has two giant pegs, one at the top and the other one at the bottom, which completely ruin the look of the headlights. Of course, for people new into the diecast hobby, they're probably not going to notice this a lot, or maybe they're going to think this is part and parcel of 1/24 scale cars. But the new Ferrari, which I'll be showing you in a second, shows how Bburago can improve the quality of the headlights even in this scale. So as I said, we have here a lot of problems. This is not something that is like a scratch or some damage. This is exactly how the model came. And here's a look at the other headlight. Again, you can see that there's a peg at the top and a peg at the bottom. And another difference between the old and the new is that the old one has a bigger Ferrari logo. You can see the badge, it's quite big, which is of course good on one hand, but on the other hand, it's a little bit out of proportion to the size of the badge on the real Ferrari 458 Italia. Now let's move on to the new 458 Italia. So here you can see that there is an improvement in the headlight. It still has a peg here at the bottom, but the top one is gone. Compare that with the old one, and you can see that it looks better. And here's a look at the other headlight. Again, there is an improvement. The top one is no longer there, although there's a little bit of a mark left as to where the old peg would have been, as you can see right there. So that one's no longer there. And you can also see that the Ferrari badge is smaller. which of course on one hand isn't so good because it is smaller, but on the other hand, if you're a fan of realistic proportions, this is far more in line with how big the badge is in the real car as compared to the old Bburago Ferrari badge here. And the windshield wipers are also different. That's the difference. Of course, from afar you can say that this looks more realistic than this. Now let's move on to the air intakes at the front. You can see that on the old 458 Italia, this texture here is barely noticeable. I mean, there is a kind of a texture for the grille, but it's not really noticeable. But if we move on to the new 458 Italia, the pattern is far more crisp and sharp, and I believe even the prancing horse at the front has been improved compared to what it looks like on the old model. So everything has improved at the front. Of course, not comparable with 1/18 scale standards, but still, for 1/24, this is definitely a noticeable improvement. There are no other differences at the front, so I suggest we move on to the side. So on the side of the car, apart from the aforementioned brake disc and yellow brake caliper on the new 458 Italia, there is really no other difference. I mean, we have the Scuderia shield on the old one, just like we have on the new one. Now, on the new model, the wing mirrors are made out of plastic and reflect the sunlight as it goes through it, which is of course annoying to me, while on the old model they're made out of metal. We have the Pininfarina badge down here on the old one, just like we have it here on the new one as well. If we move to the car's back, this is where we begin to notice more differences. One of the downsides of the old 458 Italia was the fact that its taillights were simply painted on instead of being actual lights. Whereas on the new 458 Italia, you can see that these are actual separate plastic taillights. Which makes all the difference. Another difference between the old and the new 458 Italia is that on the old one, the Cavallino Rampante, the prancing horse on the back, is three-dimensional, but it's essentially just silver paint on what was part of the car mold itself. So it's a little bit of a protruding horse, but not very accurate. On the new 458 Italia, this has been replaced by a two-dimensional print, but for that, it looks clean, crisp, sharp, and accurate. Another difference are the exhausts. On the old one, these are completely made out of chrome and have no depth to them, while on the new one they are made out of a more dull on one hand, but on the other hand more realistic matte silver. And you can see that they are black on the inside, which gives you the impression that they continue onward towards the inside of the car. As for the rest, there is no real difference here. I mean, the rear diffuser is pretty much the same on the old car as well as on the new one. However, we have another difference up here. You can see that these grills up here on the old car barely have any kind of texture present. Let me try to make this as sharp as I can get. You can see there is a kind of a texture hinted at, but it's barely noticeable because it's not printed on that well. I mean, it's there, but, you know, not really defined. On the new car, you can see that they replaced this with separate plastic pieces, which have a much more clearer and defined texture. You can see right there, it looks really good. Compare that with the old one. So overall, I think even at the back end, the new model looks a lot better than the old one. Which brings us to this next section of the car. I've turned the flash on so you can see that here on the old car, these air vents at the back are actually holes. There's nothing inside. But on the new car, you have a texture here. It's a little hard to see, but Bburago has put in a little plastic piece on either side, which again is maybe better or worse depending on your personal take on this matter, because if I turn the flash off you can see that it doesn't really make a difference, and some people prefer to have actual holes for vents instead of them being blocked. Now the last part we need to talk about is the interior, but there isn't much to say there because there is no difference between the old one and the new one. I mean, the old one's up there. Let's take a look at the interior there. There's really not much going on here. I mean, in terms of differences. Of course, the interior is nice for a 1/24 scale, but you can see that even the old one has the silver paint on the center console, on the floor pedals, the Ferrari logo on the steering wheel, sticker on the instrument panel, and here the new one has the same thing going on, including a 458 Italia logo on the dash, which was also present on the old one. Wow, I just made a mistake here. Huh. Actually, this car on the right is the old one, and that one's the new one. But you can see that there are no differences in the cockpit, which is the reason why I was confused. And the same applies to the engine. This is the old car, as you can see, no brake discs. And the engine looks exactly the same as on the new car. No differences whatsoever. Both engine bays open. Let's see if I can get this open. I'm going to use my nail. There you go. So the engine bay opens as far up on the old car as it does on the new car. And here's a look again at the engine. No difference. So I hope you guys like this comparison between the old Bburago and the new Bburago. I mean, I know that most of you didn't like it, and you're probably going to dislike this video because you're really upset at what Bburago is doing, but I really do hope that you just give my video a thumbs up and subscribe if you like this type of content. I think that more people should be made aware of the changes that Bburago does without informing the buyers, essentially. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I'll see you on the next video. This is Imperial Diecast signing out.